Great. So hello and welcome to our webinar today on the integration between SharePoint and Teams. My name's Libby, and I'm just here to give you a quick introduction to Alberon, a little bit of background, and just sort of provide a bit of a better understanding about what we do. So we were started around 17 years ago here in Oxford, primarily specialising in web application development, SharePoint development, Power BI reporting and analytics, and bespoke software development. And more specifically, some of the services that we offer include software development, web design and development, managed web hosting, and software and web support and training. We actually have a series of really comprehensive courses that we should be launching in the near future. And they'll be quite a bit more in depth and really teach you how to manage and keep up to date with your own online environments. And relating to that more specifically, we've been expanding our SharePoint services and other Microsoft services where we can help with development, design, consultancy, and training, specifically relating to SharePoint sites, but also we can offer consultancy with lots of other Microsoft services as well. So some of the SharePoint services that we offer include helping with the planning, design and development of SharePoint sites, migrating and updating services, and just providing ongoing support, including training to staff. Now, the reason we want to support more organizations with SharePoint is because it already comes as part of the Microsoft 365 subscription. So it just makes it really accessible to those who already use Microsoft services. And we also find that a lot of businesses don't really use SharePoint to its full potential. So we can really help organizations and individuals to really maximize the benefit of the Microsoft suite of applications. And further to that, SharePoint can be used for more efficient collaboration, document management and control, and be customized to your organization. So it can be designed to handle any specific business processes that you might require. And we tend to find that people enjoy using SharePoint because of its built-in functionality and centralized administration. It's very customizable. The document management and collaboration features are fantastic. And once you're familiar with it, it is really quite easy to use. And as I mentioned previously, it's also fully integrated with existing Microsoft 365 apps. So it just creates a much more seamless and efficient end user experience. And we find that this really empowers the users to handle processes themselves instead of having to really heavily rely on external support. So here we have just a small selection of many of our happy clients. We also have various Oxford University colleges and charities in and around Oxfordshire. And generally, these clients have found that their processes have become much more efficient since developing their SharePoint environments. And if you're interested in the kind of services that we've offered them, you can read more detailed testimonials on our website. And additionally, on our website, we have a range of case studies, which you might find interesting or useful to read. And these case studies sort of identify the challenges that organizations were facing and detail how Alberon were able to help them create positive results that benefited everybody within their workforce. And some of the solutions that we've delivered include establishing an easy-to-use intranet, reforming their permissions and access structures, and providing consultation and training to company staff to help them become more confident with maintaining their sites themselves. And these results have been fantastic. They've included the removal of any inconsistencies within their site structures, and have included far more professional setups and appropriate systems for information sharing and access. So why choose Alberon? Well, obviously, like I just said, with over 17 years of experience, combined with the skill and the expertise of our consultants and developers, we do know how to, tailor solutions to specific business needs. And in addition to that, we can provide business insights and analytics, as well as in-house technical support. So you can feel comfortable knowing that the needs of the organization are in safe hands. If you're interested in any of the other services that we offer, or if you'd like to know more, then you can drop us an email at hello@alberon.co.uk. We'll be happy to discuss any queries with you. Also, I just want to point out that during this webinar, we will have a Q&A session at the end once James has finished presenting. So please do pop any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll be able to get round to answering those at the end. Should just be on the bottom of your screen somewhere. And I think now I can hand over to you, James.
Good morning, everyone. So my name's James McDowell, and I'm the Senior Microsoft Consultant here at Alberon. And today in this webinar, we're going to be looking at the interaction between SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. Some of this we may have touched on in previous webinars, but it doesn't hurt to mention things again, and maybe add a couple of new things. So I was actually asked in one of these webinars before by an attendee, should I use Teams or SharePoint? And my answer to that would be, if it's set up correctly, you should be using both. So when you create or a standard deployment for Microsoft 365, and this isn't a one-size-fits-all, I mean, we tailor this and make sure that we're meeting our clients' needs, but the most standard way of deploying Microsoft 365 is to have a SharePoint-based intranet with a company landing page and then some associated sites for teams within that organization. And they will have linked Microsoft Teams channels, and that creates the three core applications of a well-managed and deployed 365 environment is SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and Outlook. With those three at the heart of it, you can make the best use of a lot of the other features and applications within 365. Now, I'm not going to touch on Outlook today, and that's actually next week's webinar, where we're going to look at some of the integration between Outlook and some of the other apps about effective task management. So today it's just SharePoint and Teams. Now, we've touched on before, when we create a SharePoint site and when we start creating SharePoint environments, it's actually creating a Microsoft 365 group. And that group has a number of resources, which include obviously the SharePoint site, but also the Teams channel if you choose to activate that function. I'll just try and jump onto one. So here's a brand new SharePoint site. So this is right, looking at what would be right at the start of your journey. So when you create a SharePoint site for an intranet, you would use the team site template, which is what you're seeing here. And when you first come into it, this is what you would see. So Microsoft includes some recommended web parts just to kind of get you started. But you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner is add real-time chat, add Microsoft Teams. And when you select that option, what it does is actually creates a Teams channel that's linked directly back to this SharePoint site. So you've got a proper permanent communication chain between SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. And what that looks like in practice, so this is our Alberon demo site that we use in a lot of these webinars. When I created this, I actually selected that option to add a Microsoft Teams channel. And what that did, if I bring up Teams, so this Alberon demo Teams channel is actually linked back to that Alberon demo SharePoint site. And as I was saying, the first interaction is to be able to add and remove individual users from the group, which when you add someone, then give them access to all of the other group resources, including that SharePoint site. So within the channel itself, you can go to Manage Team and you can very quickly search for people in your organization and add them in. And this won't just add them to the Teams channel, but it will give them member access to the SharePoint site as well. Similarly, you can add owners. So that's kind of the first interaction. It's a very simple, easy way of adding and removing users from resources that they need. The second one is files. So as you can see, we've got a general channel there. Now that main Alberon demo channel and the general sub channel are actually linked back to SharePoint as well. And I'm probably going to have to stop sharing and then reshare on the SharePoint side. Fun and games. So when you create a SharePoint site, you get a default documents library called Documents on the left-hand side. And if you go into there, you will see that there's a auto-created folder called General. Now that General folder is directly linked to the general channel back in Microsoft Teams. So if you create any documents within this folder or within this document library itself, those files and folders will automatically be available back in that Microsoft Teams channel and vice versa. So a good use of it is I've seen clients who go in a Microsoft Teams meeting, Teams call, create a new document, collaborate on it within that meeting. And as soon as they've created it, it's automatically added into this SharePoint folder and SharePoint document library. So you can use Teams to collaborate on new documents, maybe update it, work a bit of brainstorming, but then those files are automatically available back in SharePoint, where you can make use of SharePoint's more intelligent document management features and some of the other functionality contained within SharePoint. So there's a real synergy between the Teams channel and the SharePoint site. And when used effectively, you get the benefits of both, which is really, really useful. The next one, I'm going to have to have fun and games with something sharing. So the next feature I wanted to highlight is News Connector. If you can see from the chat there, I've actually added this in already. Basically, each Teams channel has a set of connectors that you can add to increase the functionality and make more resources available in that channel. And one of them is SharePoint News. Now, the SharePoint News web part, which we've demoed before, is a really popular web part for organizations. So it allows staff to post updates, events, and inform their colleagues of what's going on around the business. When you add the SharePoint News connector in, what this does is as soon as someone posts a new story or a new post in SharePoint, it will automatically put a notification into the Teams channel to say someone's posted this. It'll have a quick image, sort of thumbnail image, and you can click it and it will take you directly from Teams back into SharePoint to that news story. So if you're a heavy Teams user and you spend a lot of time in there, that's really useful because you get sight of what's going on back in the SharePoint site. It's a feature I've rolled out for clients before, and they really like it, people that spend a lot of time in Teams, because they're being kept up to date. There are other connectors, but this is quite a common one that we recommend, and they find that really good. Second interaction is recording. So a lot of people record meetings or training sessions in Microsoft Teams, just like we're recording this webinar. When you've finished recording, there'll be a notification in your Teams channel, but it actually uses another application in 365 called Microsoft Stream, which has now been updated and it's now streamed for SharePoint. And those recordings will automatically be made available back in that default document library in SharePoint. They'll also be available within Microsoft Stream as well, where you can create video libraries and channels, so you can have a back catalogue of meetings, training sessions and that. So there's a real connection there with recordings, which is quite useful, particularly if you want to share, if you're making training sessions that you want to share more widely, and you can do that then from SharePoint. The next thing I wanted to look at is pinning tabs. So I don't know if you can see at the top of your, move this down a bit. At the top of the channel, can you still see that, Libby? Oh, yeah, brilliant. So by default, you will have the name of the channel that you're in. This one is general. Posts is where all your chats will appear, and that's the default one. As you can see, there's a files option there, and that relates directly back to that document library in SharePoint. So this is completely linked to that. So anything, like I said, that you create in that document library will be available here and vice versa. There's also a link back to the SharePoint site as well, which you can click on and take you back. But you can also add more tabs on here, and these can allow you to pin resources that you've created in your SharePoint site. So I've actually added one in. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to select it, which is lists. So when you go to add a new tab, it will come up with a load of options. Some of them are Microsoft 365 apps, but some of them are third parties as well. And what it does is allows you to pin resources so that you can quickly access them in Teams, which is obviously brilliant when you're collaborating, particularly in meetings and stuff like that. So I've added Microsoft lists as a tab. It then asks you to choose a list that you've already created. So I've chosen this, which was test list 1, I think I've called it. Now this list I actually created in SharePoint. To work on testing some automation. But as you can see, you can very quickly pin it in Teams. So you can actually work on this collectively. Microsoft's really big now on collaboration, and I'm sure any of you that have used the online versions of the Office apps will know that you can collaborate in real time on there. But what Microsoft Teams allows you to do is collaborate during a call, which people find useful. Rather than just seeing little cursors moving around the screen, you can actually work properly, particularly if you're hybrid or remote workers. Lists is just one example. You can also pin Power BI dashboards, Microsoft plans. So if you create a plan in SharePoint using Microsoft Planner, that can be pinned here as well. And like I said, Power BI dashboards and various things like that. So a lot of the resources that you create in SharePoint can be made available in your Teams channel. And then when used correctly, you can kind of move very seamlessly between the two. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get your head around it, you'll find it's really easy to like jump between Teams and SharePoint, depending on what functionality you want. So that's another good example. Now, the last one I'm going to touch on, and we may do a follow-up webinar on some of this, because I don't know if you caught at the beginning, there is Microsoft Teams 2.0 is now been released in beta version. We're hoping for general release this year. There's a lot of improvements, a lot around AI functionality and the speed of it, and they've streamlined some of the menus. But there will be more and more integration between Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. So any new features that come out, once we've tested it ourselves, we will definitely do follow-up webinars on that to keep you guys updated. The last one I was going to quickly touch on is digital signatures. So if you can see from the left-hand side here, you've got your standard Teams options. But if you hit the 3 dots, you've got a selection of apps that you can add into your Teams channel. One of them is approvals. And if you set that, there is an approvals function built into Microsoft Power Automate, which allows you to approve things internally. It's really good, and it's something we use a lot with clients. But you'll also notice that there's 2 inbuilt options for Adobe Sign and DocuSign as well. These 2 digital signatures applications can be fully integrated with Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. So if your organization uses either of those, it's very easy to roll them out and make them available in both. And the way the interaction will work, I've used both of these previously, and we've got clients that are using it. If you digitally sign something in SharePoint, you will actually get a notification in Teams, and it will send you updates so you can track that document as it's moving through its signature flow. So you can see what stage it's at, and it keeps you regularly updated, which is really, really handy. Like I said, if you're in Microsoft Teams a lot, so you know what's going on back in SharePoint. What it also does is keeps a full audit trail in Teams. So every document that you send for a signature yourself, or any document that's sent to you for your signature, will be recorded in Microsoft Teams. So you've got a complete audit trail of all your digital signature activity in SharePoint, readily available straight in the approvals app in Teams. So this is just another example of how Teams and SharePoint can work hand in hand. I've used DocuSign a lot. I've used Adobe Sign as well. And when you're in Teams a lot, you're in and out of meetings, being able to see your signature trackers is really, really useful if these are products that you use. So that's in summary. Resources that you create in SharePoint. SharePoint's brilliant for making use of its extended functionality around document management and some of the intelligent automation you can do. But you can benefit from having those resources in your Teams channels so you can work and collaborate together. And once you get used to it and used to all the features, you will seamlessly move between the two, whichever is most appropriate for whatever task you're trying to achieve.
Great. Yeah, of course, it's becoming such a powerful tool now that people are becoming more open to the idea of using it in the kind of everyday processes, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you ask someone like my mum, and her view of AI is it's the Terminator films, whereas the Copilot business chats demos I've seen so far, it's going to make life really easy for a lot of people. I'm quite excited about it.
Great.
So hopefully we will get that webinar out very soon.
Great. And I think we can wrap up there. Thank you very much, James.
No problem.
And just a reminder that if anybody has any other questions, you can drop us an email at hello@alberon.co.uk. And if you keep an eye out on our LinkedIn page, you should be able to see future webinars and events that we have on there sort of as and when they come out. So if you're interested in any more, then that's the place to go. Great. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Bye.